Now, in this video, I will show you how to find the x-intercepts of a quadratic function. If we consider any quadratic function, we know that since the graph is a parabola, so its graph gonna be like this. And according to the definition of the x-intercept, because the x-intercept is the point where the graph of the function intersects with the x-axis. So in this example, our x-intercepts are these 2 points, okay? And at these 2 points, the y-coordinate, they are both 0, and the x-coordinate, there are some real numbers. So in other words, when we are looking for the x-intercept of a quadratic function, what we need to do is to replace the fx by 0 and to solve this quadratic equation. And the solution of the quadratic equation x1, x2, they will be our x-intercepts. Okay, now please keep in mind, sometimes the solutions do not exist. That means sometimes the quadratic function or the parabola, it doesn't have a x-intercept. So for example, if we consider a parabola that opens up, and it's above the x-axis. So in this case, we do not have a x-intercept because the graph, it will not intersect with the x-axis. Another possible situation is now we have a parabola that opens down, and it is way below the x-axis. So in this case, we don't have a x-intercept. And sometimes we may have just one x-intercept, and this means the parabola, it only touches the x-axis at a point. So in this case, we have only one x-intercept. Okay. So let me summarize this. If a parabola touches the x-axis at 2 different points, then we're going to have 2 different x-intercepts, and we can find them by solving this quadratic equation. And if the parabola opens up, which means if a is greater than 0 and the parabola is above the x-axis, then we don't have x-intercept. Or if a is less than 0 and the parabola is below the x-axis, then we don't have the x-intercepts. And if the solution gives you only one solution, if the equation gives you only one solution, that means we have only one x-intercept. Okay? Now then, let's go back to this example. So we're asked to find the x-intercepts and the vertex. Now in the previous class, we have said that given the function, even though we don't convert the function into the standard form, we are still able to find the vertex by using this formula, or on some textbooks use this formula. So let me use the first formula to find the vertex first. So here A is a -1, B is a 14, and C is a -48. So if I compute negative B over 2A, this will be -14 over 2 times -1. And this is a -14 over -2, and that is +7. So we found out the x-coordinate of the vertex. Then let's find out the y-coordinate of the vertex. So now I want to compute this guy. So 4 times A times C and minus 14 square and divide by 4 times -1. Okay. Now 4 times -1 is -4. And 14 square is 14 times 14. This is 196. And the -4 times 48. This is positive 192. So 192 minus 196. This is -4. -4 over -4. That's +1. So the vertex is the point. The vertex is the point 7 and 1. Okay, now let's find what are the x-intercepts. So as we said before, to find the x-intercepts, we're gonna change the fx into 0 and solve the quadratic equation. Now we have already learned how to solve a quadratic equation, right? You can use factoring. If this trinomial can be factored, then you can use a factoring, and then use the zero product property to solve the equation, or you can use a quadratic formula. So here in this example, we can solve it using the factoring. Let me show you why. So first, I multiply both sides by -1. This is because we don't really like a -1. We don't really like a negative x squared. So if I multiply both sides by -1, first I don't change the equation, okay? But I will change the coefficient of x into x squared into +1. And the next term is -14x, and the next term is +48. And the right hand side is 0. And if we look at this trinomial, you will see we can factor it into x minus 6 times x minus 8. Because -6 times -8 equals 48, and -6 plus -8 equals -14. Then, using the zero product property, we will get two equations. One equation is x minus 6 equals 0, another equation is x minus 8 equals 0. So we found these two x-intercepts. Now, on Weber sign, when you put your answer, it will remind you to put a smaller value, and then a larger value. So in this example, so because 6 is less than 8, so we put 6 here and we put 8 here. Okay. Now, if you use a quadratic formula, you will get the same result. Okay. So if you use quadratic formula, you wanna let me write down here. If you use quadratic formula, you use a negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So you wanna plug these three numbers, -1, 14, -48, into the formula, and you will get the same result.